All right. Hello and welcome to the Behance Workshop brought to you by ASU's AIGA Poly. Little playlist to get us started for today. Someone just give me a little confirmation in the chat that you can in fact see the Behance Workshop slides. Thank you. Awesome. All right, so our workshop today is being recorded, so you will have the opportunity to see this again. Also, I'll make it available on the GIT Awards website, which is why many of you are joining us today, wanting to use this for your GIT Awards portfolio. However, it's important to note that we have guests from all over ASU, but also all over, well, the world, possibly. We put it out there to all the rest of the AIGA student chapters, knowing that this is an integral part of what we do in our workshops or in showing off our work in our portfolios. And so this is a tool that is very useful to many disciplines. So we're taking a look at it from that way. Thanks for joining us. I do have a link for you with some assets if you want to follow along with me and you're just getting started in Behance. I've just put that in the chat. So it links to a Dropbox that I've shared with y'all that has some of the assets in it. So if you'd like to walk through, you are welcome to do so. If you have your own work kind of up and ready to go, you can use that as well. At any time during this presentation, do not hesitate to raise your hand. In the participants window, you should see an option to raise your hand and go ahead and do that. And I will do my best to answer your questions. This workshop is for anyone, whether you're first looking at Behance, you've never looked at it before, or if you are a pro and you might get some new tips and tricks. In fact, Behance has recently updated its interface, so there might be a few new things for you. I think it's just a little more streamlined, so you'll probably understand completely what you're doing, but you'll kind of be able to see that as well. All right, let's get this party started. We are going to walk through a couple of things today. We're going to look at getting started. So if you've never logged into Behance before, we'll take a look at that. Gather the assets that you want to kind of put together for your portfolio on Behance. And of course, I'll give you some resources to dive in later, and I will make this slideshow also shareable later. So you'll have the recording and this. We'll talk about building our profile because the Behance profile can actually serve as your resume, which is makes it super awesome, serving as both your resume and your profile. We'll look at the bio, the resume, and how you can make connections there in your profile with teams or following other folks on Behance. We'll look at uploading a project and some advanced techniques. I think those of you that are familiar with Behance or have used it before will be pleasantly surprised by some of the upgrades that it recently got. And I'll show you some of those. And then, of course, once you have your Behance going, how do you get visibility? How do you share that on social? And how can you create a portfolio website? And in fact, going through Behance will make that incredibly easy. With the touch of a button, you can instantly have all of your work and projects from Behance imported right into an Adobe Portfolio website, which is very exciting. All right, any questions before we get started? Fantastic. Never hesitate to raise your hand in the participants window and I'll call on you and you can unmute and share. All right, so getting started with Behance. Behance is one of the free platforms that Adobe offers. And so in order to get started, the only thing you need is an Adobe ID, and this is free. I'll go ahead and copy that link and give it to you in the chat. If you don't currently have an Adobe ID, you can get a free one here. Also, if you do already have Adobe credentials, these are the same. So if you're already running in Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe CC, then you'll use the same one. One and done, easy. And then if I'm going to give you the specifications for profile pics and project pics. So if you want to gather those as I'm sort of introducing this stuff, that would be amazing. If not, you have the resource for later. A profile picture in Adobe Behance is 800 by 800. The cover picture for your Behance page is 3200 by 410. And you can also put a brief bio in there. So if you have those, if you want to start kind of collecting those assets as we're going, then you can enter them as we get there. Projects have kind of opportunities for different types of materials, but one thing they'll always have is a thumbnail. And this thumbnail is what you'll see as you're browsing through Behance, and as others are looking at your work, they are tiled in these little thumbnails. And you want to actually build that specifically for these dimensions so that your thumbnail serves as that enticing, engaging piece to the viewers. And that one is 808 pixels by 632 pixels. Random, but what else? That's what it is. And then when you add project images to your Behance project, those can be up to 1400 pixels wide. So that's where the responsiveness stops there. After 1400 pixels, you'll be scrolling. So 1400 pixels is a good method to go with. And then, of course, if you're gathering your projects, you want to make sure you have all those project details, including your teammates, their names. You can actually plug those into Behance and it can connect right to their Behance profile, which is awesome. Or you can cite a team, and I'll show you where that is when we get there. But if you have a specific team, you can cite the whole team on a team page, which is awesome. And then I have a couple of resources for you, and these are to help with Adobe's Behance, and I'm going to put those in the chat now. Adobe Behance has a help page, as well as a really great resource. LinkedIn Learning has a whole course on Behance and getting started there. And then I'm going to copy and paste some examples into the chat as well, so that you can start looking at what others are doing in Behance with their work. And that is getting started. Lots of resources and some tech specs thrown at you here. All of them are in the chat. And of course, you'll have this in the slide deck after this event. Any questions as we get started? Anyone not able to sort of log into Behance at this point if you wanted to follow along? How about a thumbs up in the participants chat if you're all set and ready to move forward? Thumbs down or desperate cries for help otherwise. All of the thumbs up, fantastic. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward. Okay. Whoop. Flipping around on there. All right, so we start with that Adobe ID. And we're going to go ahead and enter that into our Behance. So starting right from the very beginning, we're going to go to behance.net. Behance.net, and that's actually also a link, but I'll put it in the chat. And from Behance, you can look at the top of the page and you can see sign up or log in. So if you have your Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe ID and password, you can go ahead and enter it. And if you haven't had a chance yet to sign up, you can sign up again for free. This platform from Adobe is free. That'll bring you to this page here where your sign in will be. Note that you could sign in with other platforms as well if you wanted to link it to Google or Facebook or Apple. The benefit to doing it through Adobe is that in any of your Adobe programs on Creative Cloud, one click uploads it right to Behance. So seamless integration. Now, you're going to want to finesse it a little bit once it gets there, but if there's no work there, well, having work there is better than not, right? And so one-click integration with Adobe, but of course you can sign in through other platforms. All right. Once you get signed in, you'll be here on your Behance homepage, and this works very much like a social media feed. And so the first section I've highlighted here are projects from creatives you follow, and so you'll see many of your names mentioned there as people that I follow. Once you start following people or even following hashtags, you can see all of that work kind of pop up here on your feed. You can also see Adobe Live events. So Adobe Live will often be on air on Behance, and so you can follow along with their tutorials and live events. And then you can see these hashtags. And so these are curated lists of illustrations or photography or graphic design. So you can follow a whole hashtag, and then that will appear, that work will appear here in your feed. So looking at others' work, getting inspiration, or kind of just keeping up with the trends that are happening currently in design. All right, so hopefully you're signed in, you're in Adobe, you've got your feed going, and now we're gonna work on your profile. And the profile is actually a great way to get started with your resume as well. In fact, it'll build this resume for you, and you can export it as a PDF and print it and keep it going, which is awesome. So we'll add our profile pic, which is 800 by 800. And this can be you, your picture, or an avatar of you if you feel more comfortable. Of course, whatever is comfortable for you, and knowing that this is outward facing, this is a public thing. So making sure that you're mindful of keeping it professional. You'll want to use your current name that you use for professional work. And so if you're Banksy, 1, let me know you're Banksy. 2, you would go by that. You wouldn't kind of give it away. But I know some students struggle with what name do I use? ASU recognizes me as one name. Use the name you would use if you're going to apply for a job. Just be consistent with your work. Be consistent with how you reference your work. The next thing we'll do is add a cover photo, which is 3200 pixels by 410 pixels. So this serves as your cover page, the heading, along with your profile pics. And this could be your work, which makes a lot of sense, a collage of your work, or if you want to use sort of cited materials like from stock. And I'll show you mine, and it is actually stock photo that I credit from Unsplash, of course, the go-to for stock assets, that I credit them with that, because I think it's a really nice visual representation of the kind of work that I do. You can add a short bio, a little narrative about yourself, and we'll walk through how to add that and what things you should say. And then it has a section for social media links. And again, adding those professional ones only. So if you have a lot of work that you put up on Instagram, then yes, use your Instagram. But if it's your personal Facebook account that doesn't really have anything to do with your professional work, then you aren't going to want to add that to this one. And then in this profile, you can also make connections to people and teams. So let's take a look at that. Once you're logged in, you'll see your profile pic or your avatar, if you haven't gotten there yet, up at the top left. Sorry, top right, got confused. You'll have your profile pic there. So go ahead and click on that, and that's where we are going to update our profile. That brings you here to your Behance page. You can think of it very much so like your Facebook landing page or your Instagram landing page. Behance is a social network for designers. All right, and so here I mentioned my cover photo is from Unsplash. I just really liked all of the pieces of it and felt like it represented what I do. And so I did go ahead and credit that. And that is something you're going to be very mindful as a designer anyway, but also very mindful in this space where you're advertising and sharing with other designers. That's always extremely important, but of course, really, really important on outward facing stuff. All right. So here you have your edit profile. You're going to go ahead and click on that button. And that will bring you into this page. This is where you can add your basic information, including replacing that profile pic and your details, your occupation as a student. Put student. That's your occupation. And the company then could absolutely be ASU or wherever you're from. And if you have a portfolio website, add it here. Anything you add will be put on your profile. If you don't add it, it'll just won't put that section on at all. So feel free to leave it blank. That would be totally fine. All right, so go ahead and put that information in. This is your chance to put in also your teams. So I have a couple of teams that I belong to. So I went ahead and added those here, and then those connect to all the work that I've done with those teams. So if you have a team, go ahead and add it. Here's those social media links that I was telling you about. You have so many to choose from, so many possibilities that Behance is added here. So add only the ones that makes sense for you. For me, that's Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm definitely not going to link my Facebook, but you also have Dribbble and Vimeo and YouTube and Flickr and Pinterest and all of those things. So if you have professional work in these spaces, add away. What's really great about this is that that Behance will add then that logo to your profile as well as the link. And unfortunately, you are limited to these ones. The next section is for your little bio, and you could actually call it whatever you want. The description there should be really brief. This should be your elevator pitch. I am so-and-so, and I am a designer. I like to focus on blah, blah, blah. All right, and so this is something you might want to craft over time. And you may have this at the ready. And I encourage you to have a version of your elevator pitch kind of ready to go when you're asked for your bio, and to go ahead and put it here. The next section is for work experience, and this is where it'll start to build your resume if you'd like to add that. So you can start adding work experience and even references, which is fantastic. This is what that section will go to. If you go to edit any of those work experiences, you can add contact information, your website, personal statement, work experience, education, any awards you may have gotten, and then languages, skills, and then you can add custom sections. So if there's something missing that you would like to add, you have the opportunity to give that title and details. And then up at the top, you'll see this button for view your resume. When you click that, it'll look like this. Now, I don't have very much in mind because I don't use it as a resume, of course, but I do think that this is a great way to jumpstart your resume and your portfolio. From there, you can click on the print resume. It will print, or you can save it as a PDF so that you can send it along with any of your job interviews. And that's an overview of that profile section. Ari is like, what? Yeah, it's so nice, right? And this is a newer feature that they've kind of silently added to over time. But you can use Behance entirely as your resume and portfolio, which I think is a really nice and easy way to jump into it. Yeah. So encourage you to use that. Of course, the pros is it's always there and it's right there with your work. Then the con is like you can't lay it out at all. And as designers, we kind of want to do that. But as far as getting started, I think it's a great tool to use. All right. So now we're going to look at some projects. If you have that Dropbox file that I added, and I'll add it again in case you missed it. I've provided you with the cover and a profile pic and even projects to get started. So if you want to enter them along the way, I encourage you to do that. And if you want to just follow along, do that too. Use your work. I have a question from online. What if you sign in with a student or work Adobe account and need to move it over in the future to a different account? That is a great question. And so I, in fact, have two. I have a personal account and I have my professional account through my employer, ASU. And so you can combine them. You do have to talk to Adobe customer service, but they can actually combine those two. And so you can switch between accounts, but they can also have the same materials. But you can also keep your Adobe ID forever. So you can continuously change what address that's associated with or merge them together. Although I admit it's not super easy sometimes to work with Adobe customer service. Lizzie has a question. Sorry, what's the Dropbox again? I'm a little late. Hey, no worries, Lizzie. So the Dropbox has some sample assets if you'd like to drop those in as you're getting used to Adobe Design, but you are welcome to use your own. So if you'd like to follow along, I've included that Dropbox with some assets for you to use. And if you want to use your own or just follow along, that's awesome too. All right, let's talk about some projects and loading it up. So the first thing you want to do for a quick overview is to click on the Create a Project button. This is in the link in the navigation at the top right of every Adobe page in Behance. The content, again, is 1400 pixels wide. So when you're looking at adding projects, knowing that they're within this frame and manipulating your work if you need to kind of fit within it. And it's in your best interest to fit within kind of their parameters so that you can give the best viewing experience for your viewers. The other types of content you can add are headings and text and images and graphics. You can even embed video and audio or embed from other platforms. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste this link in here. This will show you the how-tos on how to do that. That's sort of repetitive, the how-tos on how to. You knew what I meant. And the project cover. So that's that thumbnail that's going to be seen in the feed on both sort of the feeds on the Behance homepage as well as on your page itself. So being mindful of that thumbnail size, which is 808 pixels by 632, as well as a title and a description. This is what shows up and is the thing that's going to entice viewers to jump into that project. So being mindful on how you create that, and we'll go through step by step. And then you also have some settings for each project, including adding what kind of design field the project is in. Is it more closely related to photography or branding and that sort of thing? You can also add what tools you used and Adobe tools, but others as well. You can add your team members and some keywords in order to make your work really visible. And so let's step through those, but this is adding a project in a snapshot. All right, right up there at the top of the page, you have create a project. This button used to be really stand out. It was bright red and you could click on it. It had a lot of contrast on the page. It was a focal point. And now it's like a random white button at the top of the page, but what else? It's still in the same spot, right at the top, create a project. Click on that. No matter what page you are on Behance, that create a project is up at the top. So we'll click on that and that'll bring you here. So if you are familiar with Behance, you may look at this and go, wait, what? This is different. Yeah, they updated their interface recently. Although essentially with the same building blocks and just a few more, which give you some flexibility, which is really nice. So you can start building your project here in the spot that I've highlighted. You can add images, text. You can add a photo grid so it can automatically kind of shift your photos around for you. Audio, video, you can embed some work there, and you can also come straight from Lightroom. Ashley says, kind of feel the same feel from Adobe Portfolio. Yeah, they've sort of meshed these tools together. In fact, often they're kind of mistaken for each other, but they're two separate entities, sort of Behance and the Portfolio. And I will get to Portfolio at the end because I think that integration is one that's really nice. So whether you're starting here in the middle of your screen or here, literally the same thing, but it's on the side, you can start adding content from here. So it might be an image or text to explain what that is. I like to lead with the final project at the top and then do sort of a narrative, a storytelling on how I got there, right? What the parameters of the assignment or objective from the client was, and then kind of move down. So same tools, one's in the middle of the screen, one's on the side. Once you start adding work, so here we've added an image. So if you click add the image, and this is one of those provided assets I have provided with you for in that Dropbox. A great ASU brand photo here. There's a couple of ways now in the project that you can start to manipulate it the way that you want it to be seen. And the first is if you hover over the asset that you just added, whether or not that's image or text, and it'll give you this little edit button, this little round blue circle with the pen. So every type of content that you add will give you that, but not till you hover over it. So hover over it. You can reorder the images you've added or reorder the text and the images. You can add captions, you can replace, and you can delete. So you can always go back once you've loaded stuff up and make changes. So first step, getting your work out there. Next step, refining it to what you want it to look like. So this little edit button will be there if you hover. Another way to edit or to add more work is to hover over the bottom of the screen. And you'll get this little insert media button where you can then add your image or text or photo grid, yada, yada. So that is another way to do it. Then once you're in that thing, you can hover over it or select it to get this pop-up toolbox. Now, it's a little awkward and it doesn't pop up until you highlight text if you're highlighting text. So it's hidden. It's a little bit hidden. And so once you realize where it is, you'll start to get used to it. But know that you can actually change all of the text and all of the headings. You can change the font and the size and the color. You can add links. You can justify the text, which is great if you can find that unhidden tool. So again, if you highlight what you're looking at, it'll do that. Then there are some new exciting things if you are a pro at Behance. They've added this edit project button. And if you click on styles, it pops up this little styles panel and you can now change the background of your project. Couldn't do that before. It was white all day, every day. Now you can change it to whatever you want. But even more exciting, you can change the content spacing. So before, like huge amounts of margin and padding between each element that you put in, and it really spread it out and it didn't look great. Now you have content spacing. See, the default is 60. They have a margin of 60 pixels between each piece of content, which I think is a lot. Now you can change that. Now it'll be universal, which is kind of good, right? It'll apply to all of them, but you can take it up or down. Ashley, am I right? Finally. So this is really helpful, and I think is one of the reasons um, I might defer to this, doing adding my content this way rather than the advanced way, but I'll show you that in a second, more than a second. All right, the second part of this new panel here is the settings, and it's actually not new information. It was just more hidden before. So in the settings tab is where you can add all of those details to help make your work really visible, to unlock more views and more appreciations. So from here, you can change your cover image. You can give your project a title. I would highly suggest, especially with student work, that you don't say assignment 5, because no one knows what assignment 5 is, right? Or GIT 135, assignment 8. Like, that isn't super helpful to an outside audience. Instead, give it a project title that makes sense for what it actually is. Brochure project for Bananarama. I don't even know why I thought of that name. All right, and here's where you can also add some project tags. So you might add keywords there to make your work discoverable. If it's a brochure, name it, give it a tag as a brochure. If it's for a specific client, give that client the tag. And then you can add what tools you use. This is really important for visibility as well. And so what it also does is adds the icon to your project. So if you used Illustrator, it adds a little Illustrator icon to your project, which is also a great way to kind of communicate what your skills are in. Then you can categorize the type of design your project is: graphic design, interaction design, fashion, blah, blah, blah. And then the copyright, if you want to set that. And if you happen to have adult content in your project, you do want to check that so that it does filter out for those that want to filter that out. And then this is really important. You want to click on this little button that they sort of hit at the bottom, add co-owners, credits, and more. And we are interested in the and more. Which I'll talk about in a second. This is where you change your cover photo. In the cover photo, when you click, it comes to this screen and it automatically loads whatever images you had from your project, which is kind of helpful, but not, because you really do want to specify that thumbnail to be the thumbnail that wants to grab the attention. So in this case, it works pretty well, except for that it would want to shrink it up or down. So adding another one at the right size makes a lot of sense. Prescott, you have a question or your hand is raised.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, so on this topic, sorry if I preempt you real quick, but this sort of ties into Portfolio, what we're doing kind of lately. It is super important to consider this cover image or this thumbnail. And I would say, rather than simply selecting one of the more colorful images from the sequence, make a custom image, not only for the aspect ratio, but also that'll allow you to control the cropping distance, the height, as well as the color tone. Yep. So for example, if you have a lot of work that at a glance feels really disparate, and it's like, this is black and white, this is all red, this is a photo of chocolate, you can maybe put a sort of a cover design that unifies all those items. And then that way, when people visit your profile, your Behance profile, they see each project is treated uniformly or treated like a set. And it makes such a huge difference when you land on that page. Eventually, especially if you're more of a visual artist or a photographer or an illustrator, you will develop a kind of a house style where they all feel similar at a glance. But that may not appear overnight. So consider crafting a separate image just for the cover here.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Craft this thumbnail. That is the thing that is going to entice people to click on your work. And so specifically add that dimension and focused in on the thing that you want and any other information that you might want to put in there. So it drops in any of the ones from the actual work itself, but then you have the option to drop in some more, adding with this plus sign, and then it'll bring up a a browser window for you to bring, add any other work that you want. Okay. And then this last piece that is almost overlooked in the settings is actually super important. This link, add co-owners, credits, and more. And this brings you into this 3-tab section where you have basic info, display, and discoverability. If you were already using Behance, this is where it is now. They just kind of moved where it is, and it's even more hidden than before, but it's also really essential for getting visibility to your work. So I wanted to point it out. This is where you can update your project description, add co-owners. You can change the visibility, so you can mark work private until you are done working on it if you'd like to kind of reveal it. And you can also disable the comments, although I would encourage you not to. Comments are typically a good thing, especially getting feedback about your work. They can be used for that, but you do have the option of turning it off. And then this last tab is really important and often, again, overlooked, because not only is it in the settings, there's these 3 tabs that you kind of have to separately go to in discoverability. You can add your company, your brand, or your school, and I encourage you to add your school. That's a great way for us to find your work. You can add some credits. So if you have anyone you want to cite that you worked with on your team, or if you use stock assets, and so maybe what you did for the design was sort of act as the design director and put things together, make sure you credit all of those assets that you used, whether they're from teammates or a stock company. That's okay. Just make sure you make sure that you credit that. And then teams, of course. And so you can change all of these over time. All right. Once you've added all of that, all of your project details, all of the assets, you've got all your content kind of shuffled in the way that you want to, you can either save it as a draft to work on it later. So now it's still not visible and you can go back and edit it whenever, or you'll click this publish button. Once you publish, it'll automatically give you the link for your work. Now, this is just the link, the URL to the web page, so we can always get back to it later, but it does allow you to kind of copy it here or to directly upload it to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, or InDesign, which is a great way. As soon as you're done with your project, upload it to Behance and then promote it out. Great way to get some visibility. But we can always go back and get this link because it's just the URL for your project, not really a hidden special link or anything. All right. This is what the project that I just uploaded looks like. You can see that I added a photo and I added the word objective and I changed the background to yellow, gold, specifically ASU gold. So you can start to see how now with some of the new tools that they released, you can start to customize much better than you did in the past. On the top of the page, you have this edit button. And so that will take you back to edit that project, which you can always do. Also on the side here, you have your profile pic along with your project. And you can see it added Illustrator as one of the tools. I 100% didn't use Illustrator. Also, this is ASU branding, not something I actually created and is written all over this project, don't worry. So it'll show your tools there. And then you have a save button and an appreciate button. So the save button is to add to mood boards, which I'll go into in a minute. And appreciations are what other people will do. So instead of like or favorite, we have appreciations. You also have that down here at the bottom of your screen, the giant thumbs up, you can appreciate. And then you can see how many appreciated your work, how many people have seen your work, and how many comments there are. And the comments are right below here. One of the other things you have is if you hover over your work, it'll actually show you the metadata from the images, which is awesome. And now you can see that I pulled this from Photo Shelter, which is ASU's sort of photo collection. Yeah. And all the details about it. All right. So that's in a really fast way how you upload projects and how much you have control over, which is actually a lot more than you used to, which is kind of nice. And I think a really great addition to the Behance tool. And so now I want to kind of go over some advanced things that, okay, first step one, get your work out there. Absolutely. Better to get it out there than to have also done all the advanced things. So don't hold back your work, put it out there, because you can go back and edit it later. And this is some of the things that I would think about if I was going to be posting my work. The first thing is that you're really storytelling. You're telling a story with your work and how that looks. And I would lead with the final product. I would lead with that final thing that's really engaging that people want to see, and have that be the inspiration for them to read more about your project. So very much so like a resume, you have a few seconds for someone to look at it and go look for something that's standing out. And if they don't see it, then they're going to move forward. And oftentimes the beginning of the project, the objective isn't super exciting, especially not visually, right? So lead with the final project to entice viewers, and then share your story from start to finish. What were the objectives? Who was this for? What was their problem? What were they trying to solve? If there's a redesign, what did it look like before? What does it look like after? I would add brainstorms, sketches, mock-ups, prototypes, that whole thing, because what it does is tell your viewer how you got there, right? How did you get there, and what is your thinking process? Did you leave the best design on the table, or did you really make great choices along the way to get to your final project? Ari says, record scratch. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Exactly. Exactly, Ari. I bet you're wondering how I got here. And here it is. Here's the story. Product mock-ups. I think product mock-ups are a fantastic addition to adding context to whatever your product is. And I'm linking in the chat Adobe Dimension, which is a great product, very WYSIWYG 3D environment tool to put context to your product. And I'll also link this Smart Mockups, which is a free online tool to put your design into context. You designed a label for a coffee shop. You want to probably take that label and superimpose it onto a coffee cup so that the client can see what it looks like. Now, some designers would say product mockups are literally the worst. And I knew Prescott was going to raise his hand. And I'm letting you know that that's the truth. Some people absolutely not a fan of the logo mocked up on a tote bag a billion times. I like it. I like the context, but some don't. So know at least that's a thing that we talk about in the design world. So if you would like to do a product mock-up, I've given you a couple of places to kind of further that. And if you are against it with all your will, then that's okay too. That's okay. Definitely a thing we talk about in design education. All right. The next way to do this is to use Adobe InDesign or even Illustrator, right? To have control over every piece of your project. So if you want to do something that just isn't going to happen from the building blocks that Adobe provides in Behance, you can absolutely do this in InDesign or Illustrator and have a whole page 1400 pixels wide by however tall you want it, and add that in so you have full pixel perfect control. But know that with that control, you lose all accessibility. You have to put all of those details into the settings, and you still lose a little bit of accessibility there, or well, a lot of accessibility. Ashley, tote bags for the win. Yeah, I love the tote bag mock-up. I love tote bags. I have about 1,000 of them, but I do love them. And Prescott says, for sharing ideas, you don't need to spend much time in Photoshop. It's true. Absolutely. You can do a mock-up pretty easily in Photoshop. Wild postings are the new tote bag. It's true. So you can kind of, you can put your project display leading with the final, adding your story all the way through using InDesign or Illustrator or whatever you're most comfortable with. And one and done, post one thing into that Adobe project and have that be your story. You absolutely have total design control over that, but you lose accessibility. And then the last kind of level up is with mood boards. So you can create some inspiration with collections from across Behance. So if you are browsing through some great work of your peers, and note here you have so many great peers amongst you to look at their work, you can collect them in that little folder that I showed you on the project. And you can collect those into boards. So you might choose a mood board for your photography or for composition and layout, that sort of thing. That has to, that can collect your inspiration ideas. Or what I really love about Behance is that you can customize your work into collections by output or for a specific job. So if you have work across all these different mediums, and you have a job posting that's specifically for photography and illustration, you can make a mood board just with your photography and illustrations and send just that mood board as your portfolio for that company and that job, which makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's take a look at what that might look like. With some examples, I have some examples of work. Spoiler alert, some of them are yours if you're here. This first one is from Sandharya Muthukrishnan, and she's one of our former AIGA Poly students. And here she's taken that idea of a couple of things. One, leading with the final results, which is up top. And two, she's put all this together in InDesign. So this is one giant image that she put together. And because she did it that way, you're able to see a little more detail. It's a little more designed. All right, so let's break that down. Here's the first part of it. She's leading with this final product in a mock-up, in a product mock-up. So she's using smart mock-ups here to kind of put the website embedded on a laptop. And she's used InDesign, and that's how she's able to get this great background image there to kind of help tell her story. Right? This is something you wouldn't be able to do in the Behance interface. It wouldn't let you stack images on top of each other. And so this also, her entire page was InDesign, and then she sliced it into individual images so that when you're in Behance, you can actually click between them to see better, right? So the whole thing scrolling, you can see it's really long and you can see the whole document. But then if you slice out certain screens, you can look at each part of it. All right, so this first part, she's highlighted the end product. In this second part, she's moved into the story. Here's the overview. Here's what the objective of the assignment is. And then here's the existing website. And then she has these great arrows and sort of handwritten text that shows you what she was thinking during the brainstorm, something you couldn't really do in the Behance interface, but here I think adds a lot of value and helps tell the story. Then she moves on to share sort of the details and the personas that she made about this, some of the research that she put into it, moving forward to a rebranding and how she's adding that rebranding to the new design, and then the page itself and how she's changed it from before to after. And so that's a great example, kind of showing some of the advanced techniques that I was talking about, leading with the final project, telling your story, and then also using InDesign or Illustrator to create this experience that you can't do necessarily with the Behance interface. Beautiful work. Yes, Ari, this is a really beautiful one. All right, so let's take a look at mood boards. That was the other thing that I said, leveling up, using mood boards to do that. Here's a favorite from our own Ashley Fuller. So if you're looking at this work in Ashley's portfolio, you can see this save button that I've just highlighted in green. I'll go back just in case you didn't see it. Boop, there it is. When you click the save button, you can actually save it into a mood board. So when I click on that, it'll move to here. And you can see I have hundreds of mood boards that I use for the GIT awards. And but you can name it whatever you want. So you'll see all of the mood boards you have listed, or here at the bottom of the screen, you can add a new one. So here is a great example from Ari, our very own Ari Fay, president of our AIGA Poly. And Ari is using mood boards to separate her work. So she has one for graphic design, one for branding, one for photography, and so on. So having different mood boards that sort of categorize the kind of work that Ari does. And also see her profile and cover pic do a really great job promoting her brand and kind of the customization that this portfolio page can have. So I think this is where I would use mood boards to specifically pick work to send to a potential employer so that I could customize exactly what I wanted them to look at instead of looking at all my work. Now they still have access to look at all of my work and hopefully they'd be enticed to do so, but I can pick out those specific pieces. All right, this is what it looks like when you click on the mood board. As a user, you can follow that mood board. So if you want to keep up with the things that Ari puts in graphic design portfolio, you could follow this one. And if Ari wanted to save this, she would simply click on the URL at the top of the page, and that's it. Custom URL just right to this portfolio. When Ari is signed in, she'll also see an edit button, so she can edit the images that are being seen here. She can rearrange them and that sort of thing. But I think mood boards are a really great way to kind of categorize your work and to send them out to an employer, or to collect work that will inspire you that are from other people as well. And of course, it'll link back to them. All right, and our last bit is about visibility, getting our work out there, making sure we're sharing it with others. And the first way to do that is to share on social. You, of course, have that social media pop-up as soon as you add a piece, a project to your work. But you can also grab that URL from the individual project or from a mood board or from your own splash page, your own homepage on this. You can also hashtag it on Instagram if you use hashtag Behance. Every Friday, Behance features certain types of work. So great idea to get your work visible on another scale on Instagram. They'll feature you and they'll tag you on it, which is super awesome. And then the last bit was the portfolio website. So I mentioned Adobe has a platform for portfolio and for Behance. They're separate, but they're related. And in fact, they will link to each other, which is awesome. So if you're back here at behance.net or any page on Behance, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a navigation that's fixed to the bottom and it says more Behance. If you click on more Behance, you'll see that there is this box with careers at Behance, and then the second one says Adobe Portfolio. When you click on that, it brings you to your very own Adobe Portfolio. You'll see it even change the URL to portfolio.adobe.com. And it will automatically create, you can create up to 5 sites, websites on Adobe Portfolio. And the one that'll do automatically is it's usually your username.myportfolio.com. My name's super long, so I can see that they cut it off there, but that's okay. And it'll take your entire work from all your projects from Behance and automatically load them right onto this site literally nothing to do, just click and done. And then you can, of course, go in and edit that site and add pages. So Behance is one page, one and done. Adobe Spark Web Page Builder, one page, one and done. This is a whole portfolio site. You can add pages, you can add content, and it'll automatically embed all of your work in there. And then, of course, you can go in and edit that as well. And I made it. I have 2 minutes to spare with all the questions you can ask, but thank you so much for all of you being here today. Whether you're from GIT and you are looking to upload your work for the GIT Awards, which is through Behance, or you've joined us from across the nation, across the world. Thanks for being here with us.